Kick the fucking thing. Go, 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 go!
Hey, be careful! Be careful!
Push it open, push it open, push it open!
Open!
Ah,
Brian!
Brian, push the fucking door open! Go, go, go! Move, move, move!
Where is he?
On fire, 47.
Where is he?
Where is he?
Line of fire is going to be towards the east.
Where?
Line of fire towards the east.
Black cord, black cord, black cord!
So I gotta go after that.
Ah, fuck! Ah, I'm fucking hit!
Go fire, go fire. Officer above shooting.
4-2, I'm hit.
I'm starting EMS code 10. Where did you guys want to run it out? We're gonna need medical. Get medical here, 10.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm Denver Police Chief Ron Thomas. I'm here with Major Crimes Division Commander Matt Clark. We're going to provide an in-depth follow-up briefing on two officer-involved shootings that happened a little over a week ago, the first of which occurred October 29th at approximately 8:45 p.m. on South Parker Road. The second, which occurred Sunday, November 27th, just after the time change to daylight savings. Now, we understand that there's going to be a number of questions about each incident, and so we're going to stop after each presentation to make time for those questions. So that'll turn it over to Matt.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here and giving us an opportunity to provide additional information. Today's briefing is a follow-up to the information that was provided by Chief Thomas regarding the officer-involved shooting incidents that occurred on October 27th and November 2nd. This information, the information that I share will be based upon witness statements from the involved officers, and evidence recovered from the scene during the investigation. We'll do our best at the end to answer any questions you may have. On Monday, October 27th, 2025, at approximately 8:45 p.m., the Denver Communications Center received a 911 call from a clerk reporting an armed robbery in progress at the Maverik convenience store in the 3200 block of South Parker Road. The caller stated a male pointed a gun at her and demanded she lock the doors. She further advised that she and another employee were still in the store with the subject. Patrol officers were immediately dispatched and arrived approximately 3 minutes later. The officers found the exterior doors to the building were locked and the lights inside the building were off. While determining how to get inside, officers heard a single gunshot fired within the business. Believing the two clerks were in imminent danger, the officers broke out a window on a west-facing door and entered the store. Upon entry, officers moved towards the two clerks while attempting to determine the location of the suspect. The subject fired additional rounds inside the business, prompting officers to move directly towards the source of the gunfire. They were not able to initially see the subject because he was hiding behind a merchandise shelf on the east side of the store. The subject fired multiple rounds at the officers as they approached, striking one officer in the leg. And recognizing the subject posed a deadly threat to the clerks and the officers, 4 uniformed Denver police officers discharged firearms at the subject. One officer was equipped with a department-approved rifle, and 3 other officers fired their duty handguns. The subject was struck multiple times and released the handgun that he was firing. Officers immediately transitioned to rescue and medical aid. The officers evacuated the two clerks from the position against the wall and began treating the injuries sustained during the gunfire. A tourniquet was applied to the leg of a clerk who sustained a lower leg injury. The injured officer was able to walk outside of the store where he self-applied a tourniquet to his leg to control bleeding. Both clerks were transported to the hospital where they were treated and released that night. The involved officer was transported to Denver Health Medical Center where he received treatment and was released the next day. The subject was transported and later pronounced deceased at the hospital. The clerks and the officer are expected to fully recover from their injuries. The Denver Office of the Medical Examiner confirmed the identity of the subject as 35-year-old Jose Rashid Moore, and he spells it Hosearasheed Moore. Through the investigation, it was learned that Mr. Moore entered the store and requested a pack of cigarettes from the cashier. When he couldn't pay for the cigarettes, he asked for an individual cigarette, which are not sold at that location. Instead, the clerks offered Mr. Moore a fountain drink. Shortly after this, Mr. Moore produced a firearm and demanded the clerks lock the door and turn off the lights. Mr. Moore told the clerks to call the police. Over the next several minutes, while waiting for officers to arrive, Mr. Moore proceeded to smoke a cigarette that he obtained from behind the counter and also consumed several single-serve bottles of Fireball whiskey. Mr. Moore also removed his driver's license and social security card from his wallet, laying them on the checkout counter. At the scene, investigators and crime scene technicians recovered a black Springfield Arms Hellcat 9mm semi-automatic firearm. This firearm contained 1 live round in the chamber and 2 rounds in the magazine. This was a firearm that was discharged by Mr. Moore. It was determined that he fired 10 rounds from that handgun. 4 uniformed Denver police officers fired a total of 57 rounds. Again, 1 officer discharged rounds from an approved rifle, and 3 officers discharged their duty handguns. While the investigation is still in the early stages, and we are waiting on the results of additional ballistic analysis, it does appear that a round, a fragment, or a piece of shrapnel that was created resulting from a bullet or bullets that were discharged by an officer caused the lower extremity injuries to the clerks. This included a lower leg injury to 1 clerk and a foot injury to the other. These injuries appear to have been sustained in close proximity in time to when the subject was actively firing at the officers. The department's Victims Assistance Unit continues to work to support the injured clerks. The involved officers are assigned to the Patrol Division in District 3. 3 officers joined the department in 2022, and the 4th in 2024. None of these officers have been involved in a prior police shooting. All of the officers that were present at the Maverik convenience store were equipped with body-worn cameras and had them activated during this incident. And in accordance with the policy of the department, every officer who was involved in this incident will be on a non-line assignment as they complete the department's reintegration process. This remains an active investigation. We're still waiting on the results of additional ballistic evidence, but if there's any individuals that we haven't spoken with that have information, we request they contact the Denver Police Department or Metro Denver Crime Stoppers. This incident and the next incident I'll brief will be conducted, the investigations conducted in accordance with our critical incident protocol, which includes call to bureau investigation, the State Patrol, Denver Police Department's Homicide Unit, and the District Attorney's Office. These investigations are overseen by the Office of the Independent Monitor. I'll go over some brief slides and then answer any questions on this. And the only slides that I get to come up. This is a photograph of the Springfield Arms Hellcat firearm that was recovered at the scene. The firearm had, like I said, 1 round in the chamber and 2 rounds in the magazine. And that was the only weapon recovered that was associated with Mr. Moore. Any questions that we can address?
Does it look like this guy was just waiting for officers to arrive and be shot?
It looked like he had a plan to have officers come to the location and engage the officers.
Is that considered suicide by cop in your estimation?
I mean, it could be. We don't generally get into the mental health or the background, and it's tough to tell because we don't have an opportunity to talk to this individual and get additional motives. But based on the way this incident played out and the evidence that we recovered at the scene, it appears that he was trying to force a confrontation.
Do we know anything about the gunfire inside the business before officers went in? Is there any surveillance video that shows what might have been shot at?
It appears that he shoots into the air. He doesn't shoot directly at the clerks, and that happens in a sequence when the officers are attempting to pull on the doors and determine they're locked. And it seems like that gunshot is fired by the offender at that point, potentially to increase the urgency of officers in getting into the business.
Is he also the person that's saying 1, 2, 3 and then firing their weapon?
He is. Yeah.
Did the offender only shoot at the officer, only hit the officer? He didn't hit any of the clerks?
That's what we believe, correct. It appears he was directing his fire towards the officers.
Oh.
Are you able to explain the protocol when it comes to having an armed suspect, as well as quote-unquote innocent bystanders nearby in terms of getting them out of harm's way so they don't get those kind of injuries?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, this is something that we do practice and train on. I mean, obviously, our officers are trained to be aware of their surroundings as well as be aware of their target and beyond their target. Obviously, this was a very volatile situation. The clerks were a distance from the where the subject was, where the subject that was firing at officers was, but and while their fire, I think, was directed down, I think they were still beyond that. I don't think in the determination of the officers they would have perceived them to be in the line of fire, but it does appear that that at least 1 round or shrapnel or fragments caused the injuries to those 2 clerks, which we want to be transparent about. But certainly, the officers were engaged with an individual that was firing at them. They were at positions that I think, they were in positions where they were as best as possible, I think, protected from the gunfire, but then still able to engage that individual and certainly, I don't think that there was time to instruct those people to move anywhere else, especially since it really was undetermined if he was shooting at anybody that moved or if he was just determined to shoot at the officers.
Do you think they were trapped in that position when the gunfire started?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but I feel like that probably was the position that they felt safest in the moment. Is they were on the other side of that portion of the store from where the suspect was, and they were not near the officers. But I'm sure that they would have preferred to be in another place if they could safely get there.
And we don't know which officers' shrapnel fragments may have hit those two clerks. Is that accurate?
I think we still needed to do some ballistic analysis to determine that for certain, but I think we do believe that that it was one of our officers who fired. It was a result of them firing that caused the injuries to the clerks.
Would there be any sort of different repercussions for that officer if you are able to determine where those shots came from or where that shrapnel came from a specific officer?
Well, those decisions really are not up to me. I mean, certainly, there's the legal question that the district attorney will be evaluating, and then there will be a determination as to whether or not the officer's actions were within policy. I mean, I can't speak to any of those because those are not my decisions to make. But what I can say is that awfully proud of those officers for facing that danger and moving in the direction of that gunfire and ending that situation without any further loss of life or significant injury.
Chief, is this something, and you may have said this, but I'm asking for some clarification. Is this something that an independent investigation looks at and your internal division looks at to see if the officers handled this shooting appropriately in terms of where they fired the weapons and where the clerks were?
So the first review that will occur is the review by the district attorney. Once that is complete, there will be an additional review of the tactics that the officers used and whether or not the tactics that they used and the force that they employed was within policy.
Real quick, I just want to clarify because it sounded like in the video he might have counted down twice and then fired. Did he shoot into the air twice?
No, when he's counting, we believe he's directing gunfire in the direction of the officers. I think the one that we thought was in the air and didn't have necessarily a direct target was the initial shot inside when the officers are still outside. But when he counts the number sequence, he fires one round. He counts the number sequence again. I don't hear a round fired at that second point, but then he engages the officers directly. It appears.
So then one in the air and then 9 after that towards officers. If he fired 10 rounds.
Essentially, yes.
And why was he counting down? Do you have any theory on that? Was it just to let officers know he was going to shoot?
No, I mean, we don't have a theory. Without talking to him, it'd be complete supposition about it. Yeah.
Had you guys ever had an encounter with him before?
There have been prior interactions with him in Denver in the days prior. We had a domestic violence investigation related to him, and there was other cases that we wound up determining he was involved in subsequently.
Did those store clerks have any previous background with that man?
They did not. Anything else on that? Okay, I'll move on to the second one. On Sunday, November 2nd, 2025, at approximately 12:50 in the morning, Denver police officers responded to a report of a large fight in the street involving approximately 50 people in the area of East 51st Place and Biscay Court. This is in the Green Valley Ranch neighborhood in far northeast Denver. 3 officers responded to that call. They arrived approximately 8 minutes after being dispatched. When officers arrived, they observed multiple parties leaving in vehicles and others dispersing from the area, and there was no specific enforcement action taken on that incident. Approximately an hour later, at 1:50 a.m., the same officers responded back to the location in relation to the prior call. Upon arriving, the officers observed multiple people arguing in the street and then heard gunshots being fired. An officer saw an individual firing a handgun on Biscay Court. After firing this weapon, the subject turned and began running in the direction of the officer. While running, the male raised a firearm in the direction of the officer, and fearing he was preparing to shoot, the officer discharged multiple rounds at the individual from his duty handgun. The subject ran past the officer and briefly stopped near the intersection of East 51st Place and Biscay Street. Recognizing the subject had just fired rounds, was non-compliant with commands, the officer still believed he posed a threat and discharged several additional rounds at the subject at that location. The subject fled north on Biscay Street and was contacted several houses down, where he was found to have sustained a gunshot wound to his leg. Officers began treating the subject, applying a tourniquet to that leg. Following the gunfire, officers located 2 additional individuals in the area who had been injured by gunfire and began rendering aid while awaiting EMS. A juvenile male sustained a gunshot wound to his pelvis, and an adult male sustained a gunshot wound to his elbow. All are expected to survive. We do recognize there was a delay in providing an update regarding the custody status of the juvenile suspect involved in this case. This resulted from initial confusion at the scene regarding a distinct article of clothing the subject was wearing, specifically a camo jacket. This jacket was removed to evaluate his injuries and wound up being tucked underneath him as medical care was being rendered. Once this article of clothing was later found underneath him at the hospital, investigators were then confident that this was the same individual involved, that the involved officer observed possessing a firearm and shooting that firearm, as well as the same person that our officer fired his weapon at. The subject in the case is a juvenile, so he will not be identified today. The Denver District Attorney's Office charged him with multiple counts of attempted first-degree assault and juvenile in possession of a handgun. Investigators and crime scene technicians recovered 2 Taurus 9mm semi-automatic firearms while searching the area near where the subject was stopped by officers. One handgun was black and the other was purple. Forensic analysis is being conducted to attempt to determine the identity of the individual who possessed each firearm. It was determined that the Denver police officer involved in this incident discharged his weapon 14 times. That was his duty handgun. An additional 25 shell casings were located in the area where officers heard gunfire when they arrived. The involved officers of Uniform Patrol Officer assigned to District 5 in far northeast Denver. This officer joined the department in 2023 and has not been involved in a prior police shooting. All officers were equipped with body-worn cameras and had them activated during this incident, and the involved officer will complete the department's reintegration process. Again, this is an active investigation. There's a number of people in this residential area, so if there's information that anybody has that we haven't spoken to or video of the incident, we'd appreciate it if they call the Denver Police Department or Metro Denver Crime Stoppers. I'll review the slides on this one. I'm going to start with a drone image that was taken as part of the crime scene documentation. The streets are a little bit different and difficult out in that specific area of town. Biscay Court is the area where they were initially called. The 25 shell casings were located in this area, and this is where the arguing in the party had been occurring, where the officers were initially called. The involved officer was positioned in this area here and fired upon the subject as he was coming down to 51st Place and in that direction there. And then the subject ran past the officer on the sidewalk, stopping at 51st Place and Biscay Street. The officer then repositioned and was in this area here, just to the side of the house, and fired additional rounds at the subject there. The subject proceeds north on Biscay and is contacted in this area here, and that's approximately where the firearms were recovered. 2 firearms were located in the yard. Again, both were Taurus semi-automatic 9mm handguns. One did not contain ammunition. The other had 8 rounds of ammunition in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. Can we answer any questions on that one?
Is there any belief that both of those weapons belong to the suspect? Are you looking for 2 people to potentially have ownership of one?
So it is possible that they were both in the possession of the individual. That's why we're going to wait for confirmation from the forensic testing to know for sure.
And can you confirm the number of people who were injured?
There was 3 injured individuals. The subject and then 2 additional were found in the area as well.
They are Hispanic?
I'm not sure of the race or ethnicity of them.
Are you able to provide an age on the suspect or no?
We will get that for you. I just want to confirm that before I give it up. We can offer an age, though, at some point.
I know you mentioned that an adult was also injured. Was he involved with the fight between the juveniles?
He was present. I don't know to what degree his involvement in that initial interaction that occurred on on Biscay Court was, but he was present and moving with the others that were present as well.
I don't know if the time change factored into this, but can you explain what happened in that hour between that initial call for a fight at 12:50 and then the action taken at 1:50?
So essentially, the officers responded and initially checked the area, and everybody was dispersing because it took several minutes for the officers to get there. So that had kind of dissolved, and everybody was leaving. The officers had visible presence there, stayed in the area briefly, and then cleared for other actions, and then wound up responding back to the scene as it was reported that by somebody in the area that the people were back or something was escalating again, and that's what brought the officers back. So I'm not sure what happened in between when they left and when they responded back.
Was there a 911 call or something that brought officers back in terms of like noise?
There was a call to the communication center. I'm not sure if it was a 911 or a non-emergency, but it was related to that prior incident that initially got them there at 12:50.
And do you have the cause of the incident, a fighting, a party?
So the initial call was for a fight with 50 people in the roadway. That's what initially got the officers out there. And I believe the second call was essentially a supplement to that, that it was the situation was ongoing or the people had returned who were involved in the prior incident.
Just one officer fired their weapon?
That's correct.
So the chief,
Well, I would say I have two concerns. I mean, obviously, again, young people with guns in their possession that are acting irresponsibly, so that's one concern. The second concern is the concern that we continue to have with, these large house parties, which is why we ask community to call these in so that we can interrupt these house parties, because this is often the result. We have people that are either kicked out of the home or people that are uninvited show up, and then there's an escalation of violence that often results in gunfire, which is what the officers, I think, came across when they returned to the scene.
Can you confirm if the guns are ghost gun or legally purchased?
Well, we are still doing an analysis to determine whether or not they were legally purchased and how they got in the hands of those folks that were at the party, but they're not ghost guns.
Sorry, one more question. Is there any early indication to say that the injuries of those two additional individuals came from that police officer?
So that is something that we're analyzing and trying to determine through ballistics if that's something that we can determine or not. We do know that that there were 25 rounds that were fired in that vicinity prior to the officer even arriving on scene, and so I think there's a number of possibilities for how they received their injuries.
And do we know how far away the suspect was found between those two additional people who were shot?
It's right in that same area on Biscay Street. They were just within a house or two and then across the street, so they were relatively close.
Do you know if the juvenile that was detained, if he lives in that area, or if it was just, he just went to that area?
I think he just went into that area there. Yeah.
Last questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.